Can you imagine in a country like Pakistan, there is zero option for flexible working hours for ammis. Zero.
There could be some
So
criticism as well from the abbus के यार अगर अम्मीज का एक स्पेशल काउंटर हो सकता है so why can't there be a counter for अब्बूज वो भी तो ब्रेक
अबूइंग
में
तो
निकल के
शुरू
भाग रहे
करें
होते
ना.
हैं. हाँ ये
मेरी बात
अच्छा
सुनिए.
पॉइंट.
या पहले अबूइंग तो शुरू करें. I think it's a brand that resonated with us and touched us because it is of us, right? So anything which is authentic touches
Yeah.
you. And ScaryAmmi is authentically us. Like it's authentically your wife and me and our kids. It's not the American or the Korean or the Japanese Ammi. It's us.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. Welcome to another episode of Out Loud with Ammaar. This is episode 7 and this is season 2 as well. Now we're getting closer to the ending of season 2, and alhamdulillah I have the opportunity of bringing another industry leader to you. Leader in so many ways, by the way. So she is a doctor, or no, she's basically a journalist. And no, she's not a journalist, but basically she is an entrepreneur. She's a mix of so many things. She'll tell you herself, but we know her for being a remarkable human and also the founder of Scary-Ammi. Ayesha, what an honor for me to share the screen with you. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, very well. Thank you for taking time out for us.
Sure. Happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. It's definitely a pleasure. As I was telling you in the beginning, I've been trying to, get in touch with you for a specific episode for Out Loud. And alhamdulillah, we were able to do it today. And Ayesha, you have made one of the most remarkable, impactful online communities focused at the Ammis of Pakistan. And maybe Ammis, Pakistani Ammis across the world, probably. So before we get into that and how that kind of unrolled for you and how that is having an impact, I am sure, and I know that my audience is always interested in knowing about the journey of the guest. So please tell us about your own, early life and how, things kind of panned out for you. What was growing up in Lahore like?
Sure. Um, okay, so I grew up in London because my parents had gone there to specialize in medicine. But I think I was very young when we came back because my earliest memories of school are from Lahore, not from London. So I think so convent is a school that my mom had had always been like her dream school. So my sister and I went to the convent when I was in grade 6 and she was in grade 5. And the convent was such a fantastic experience. And, it has so much legacy, the buildings, just the teachers, the sisters, the culture of service to people, the culture of empathy, the culture of compassion, also the culture of hard work and commitment and ambition. It was such a fantastic place. And I graduated as the head girl of convent, so obviously it was very special to me. And I think, maybe because I gave the first most important exam of my life, the O-levels, while I was at convent. It was my first leadership position. So convent is very special to me in so many ways. And I always thought if I had a daughter, I would send her there. But, times have changed and maybe the requirements for what education needs to be now have changed. So she's not at the convent. Even though I often think about, I've taken her to the convent and I sometimes wonder if it's the right decision to not put her there. So that is where I went to school. And then I went to Lahore Grammar School for my A-levels. And Udalbi, I became head girl. So I think I've always been the kind of
Lahore Grammar ki wo DHA wali E-block wali branch.
Yes. So I was
the people I've come into contact with, they've all been to Lahore Grammar School E-block wali branch.
Yeah, for sure. And convent. I think back in my generation, convent and LGS E-block were the breeding grounds for go-getter women, for women who wanted to achieve something. And in dono schools ki bahut rivalry rehti thi. So when I became head girl of one and then the other, so it was quite a shocker to Lahore. Because blue blood and red blood ki bahut debate thi. Are you a blue-blooded grammarian or a red-blooded conventarian? Then, because I was brilliant, I think I had the highest grades in O-levels. And so bahut, like, I was very nerdy, really into my studies, so medicine was like a natural fit. So I got into King Edward Medical College, which had the highest merit. And KE was a confusing time for me because, it was the first time I was in a public university, convent or LGS, so बहुत
Yeah, I
bubbles
also
हैं.
wanted to talk to you about
Suddenly,
that कि मतलब O levels के बाद फिर A levels करना probably LGS से और फिर King Edward जाना जहाँ पे हर जगह से एक participation है, so it must have been like very very different.
it was
But was it easy for you to
confusing.
settle? कैसा होता है?
I think it wasn't hard for me to settle. Because I started working as a journalist. I was exposed to all kinds of people, so वो मुझे इतना issue नहीं था. But it was like a reawakening. Like, obviously, I was now 18. That's when you start doing a lot of soul searching, and then King Edward was, a melting pot of so many different kinds of people. But everybody was very driven, was very intelligent. So the competition was really high, but the language maybe spoken wasn't one that I was used to. So it was a very confusing time, very overwhelming. But it was a very interesting time, a time when I learned a lot, not just about medicine, but about myself. And I don't know, it was probably difficult in some ways, but I made great friends. So it was a very interesting time. I think medicine, because the study of medicine is so hard and so rigorous and so like nerve-wracking and so exhausting, that it ends up really putting you in touch with who you are, because you need to have like a very high degree of determination and grit and just like a fierce commitment to make it through. Like, it's not easy. So when my children tell me today, like Kayan often says that I want to be a doctor, I want to be like Nana, and I tell him that by all means, but just know that the amount of grit that the academic rigor requires, I mean, academically इसकी studies बहुत ज़्यादा है. मेहनत आपको हर profession में करनी है if you want to get somewhere. Like Shah Rukh Khan has often spoken about still doing like 18-hour days, and he's 60 something.
Yeah,
The only difference is that Shah Rukh Khan is working and putting in 18-hour days. Medicine में आपको किताबों के साथ 18 घंटे लगाने हैं. So, like, that can be mind numbing because you're not really interacting with people. You're interacting with books. So it can work for some people. It can be very, very hard for other people.
Precisely, of course. But then how did you decide that? I mean, in 2000, I think you went to Columbia for a qualification in journalism, and yet you were interested. You've always remained interested in journalism, even before going for the program. So how did that transition take place? Like, we don't see many medical doctors pursuing a degree that is entirely different to what they have been exposed to.
I don't know if it's true that many doctors don't go on to do it. I'm actually called the white coat investor. So that is, it's a group of doctors who've become investors. Because basically, you have to understand, people who are attracted to medicine are type A personalities, definitely. You can't do medicine and not be type A. You can't do medicine and not have a really high IQ or the highest IQ in your class. You can't do medicine and not be, like the kind of person who can pull in on lighters. मतलब कितने आप smart हो वो debatable है, but मेहनत आपको करनी आती है, जुनून आप में है और आप type A हो, तभी आप medicine करते हो. People like these are generally drawn towards leadership positions. So, white coat investors is a group of people, doctors who teach people how to invest or who manage funds, etc. A lot of doctors go into Silicon Valley and start health tech startups.
Right.
Because, they know medicine and now they don't want to maybe practice it because the practice of medicine, कुछ लोगों को boring लगती है since उसमें बहुत repetitions हैं. So, एक बहुत famous saying है कि I'm not scared of the man who has kicked 10,000 times. I'm scared of the man who's kicked one kick 10,000 times. Because obviously repetition is what makes perfection. And medicine is all about repetition. So the best doctor in the world for glaucoma surgery will be the doctor who और कुछ नहीं करता, सिर्फ glaucoma surgeries करता है. The best, like when my son Ahel had an arm fracture and we were looking for like the best doctor in Europe for his arm fracture. So we found one doctor in Prague who was considered the king of arm fractures in all of Europe. And the reason he was considered the king is कि वो दिन रात बच्चों के arm fractures करता है, वो भी upper arm के. That's it. वो और कोई काम ही नहीं करता. So he was
Exactly.
so specialized. He would do upper arm traumatic fractures in children. That's it. So every day he's doing 30, 40. And he's going to do that for the rest of his life. So he is very specialized, very good. But that is all he does. He doesn't do anything else. So कुछ लोगों को ये repetition बहुत तंग करती है ना कि आप एक ही चीज जिंदगी भर करते रहो. So then they go into entrepreneurship. Then there are doctors who go into journalism actually. So I don't know if you've heard of Dr. Sanjay Gupta, the doctor
I
on
have,
CNN.
yeah, CNN, yeah.
Yeah.
Sanjay was
So,
all over our screens when the COVID, broke out.
Yes. Yeah. So he's a doctor who doesn't practice. And he does this. So I think doctors do tend to diversify, not a lot, mainly because you make good money as a doctor. And आपने इतने साल मेहनत की होती है, आपको होता है कि अब मैं यही करूं. But I think the repetition always bored me. The idea of doing the same thing over and over and over. So I've always been the kind of person who wants to have a great impact. Like for me, impact is very important. And मुझे था यार, आप कितना impact कर लोगे? When you can see like 10, 20 patients a day. I've always wanted like impact in numbers. So hence, I chose to go into like the business of telling stories, of leading conversations, of changing the world through my words. And but I mean, that doesn't mean I've said goodbye to medicine. You never know. As you change as a person and as you grow, your ambitions mold. So I don't know.
Right. And we see that you have been changing and you've been making changes to your own personality and of course your work as well. And that kind of helps you progress in life too. So yes, 100% on board. So now coming back to Scary-Ammi. First of all, it's a very different sort of a name, like Scary-Ammi. Okay, this is the kind of perception, the scary perception has always been associated, at least in Pakistan, with Abus. So while I know that there is a page for Abus as well, but to start with, how did you decide that you're going to go ahead and come up with a name that is totally unconventional?
So, when I began Scary-Ammi, I didn't really begin it as a business. Like I had 4 kids. I was feeling very overwhelmed and I was like, I need an outlet. I need a place where I can connect with other mothers feeling they're facing similar challenges. It was more about me reaching out.
Right.
So मैंने इसलिए शुरू किया था. मैंने इसलिए नहीं किया था कि I want to, make money, for example. So Kayan, I think I had just recently prepared him for HSN. And Kayan की जो पढ़ाई थी ना, that was really nerve-wracking. Like I said, type A personality and OCD, all the traits that led to me choosing medicine were still a part of me. So I am still the same kind of mother. Like I'm still a very driven, ambitious, high-stakes mom because that is who I am. Like I am type A. So जब मैं Kyan को पढ़ाती थी, I was very much like every answer should be correct, and like he was my first child. बहुत डांट के पढ़ाया. So he was very small. He was like 5 years old. So he would tell his dad, "Oh my God, my mom is so scary. My mom is so scary." जब वो essays भी लिखता था, तो he would write, "My mom is so scary. My mom is so scary." So it kind of stuck with us. My husband then would joke with the kids, "कि यार मामा को कुछ ना कहो, she's going to become scary." So it was just like a term. And then जब मैंने सोचा एक group बनाने का, so I knew that I wanted a term which represents moms in Pakistan. So I didn't want it to be like mom and mommy and momsy because that's not us. So the term Ammi मुझे हमेशा बहुत पसंद थी. None of my kids call me Ammi, and I wish they did because I now so reminiscent. It's funny. My mom would also say this. My mom would say कि because हम लोग मामा को मामा या मॉमी कहते थे, तो she would say कि काश मुझे कोई अम्मी कहे या मेरा बड़ा दिल है, but somehow वो हमारी ज़बानों पे नहीं चढ़ता था, तो हम नहीं कहते थे. And so that is when I thought कि okay, I wanted to be Scary-Ammi.
Okay. Achha, so that's the story. And
so I'm glad कि अब ज़बानों पे चढ़ गया है. Now people are like, Ammi. So now we use the term Ammi for everything, like working Ammi, housemaker Ammi, fashion Ammi, Ammipreneur. So I'm really glad. Like the inspiration began back when my mom would say, "Ki kash mujhe koi ammi ka hai." But when I became a mom, I was like, "Kash mujhe koi ammi ka hai." Koi nahi kehta. We're so glorified. We're like mom and momsy and whatever,
Mummy.
mama and yeah, mom pop, whatever. जितना आप गोरा कर सकते हो हमने किया हुआ है. So
लेकिन मेरा ख्याल है कि
suddenly the
आपके
Desi
इस
version
कहने
is
से आई
trendy.
थिंक यू मेड अ ब्रांड आउट ऑफ इट. लाइक अब अम्मी कहना इज नॉट दैट डिफिकल्ट. मुझे मतलब स्केरी अम्मी का आई थिंक स्केरी अम्मी हैज अ रोल इन दैट एज वेल. व्हाट डू यू से?
Yes, I mean, I'm glad it's become a brand. I think it's resonated with people because finally we have a mommy brand that is us, right? So we are not moms and we're not mamas. We suddenly ammis. So I think it's a brand that resonated with us and touched us because it is of us, right? So anything which is authentic touches
Yeah.
you. And ScaryAmmi is authentically us. Like it's authentically your wife and me and our kids. It's not the American or the Korean or the Japanese Ammi. It's us.
वो
So
होता है
I
ना, वो
think
कोई चीज होती है वो आपको मतलब इट गिव्स यू अ डिफरेंट सॉर्ट ऑफ अ सेटिस्फैक्शन. अब अभी मैं अपनी अम्मी को, और वो मतलब हमने भी काइंड ऑफ ये सारा माहौल एंड ओ लेवल्स एंड ए लेवल्स एंड ऑल ऑफ दैट देखा, मगर आज तक मतलब अम्मा को अम्मा कहना इज इट गिव्स मी अ डिफरेंट सॉर्ट ऑफ अ फीलिंग. तो पता नहीं, आई डोंट नो, दिस समथिंग हैज टू डू विद माय माइंड और विद माय हार्ट, एंड आई एम श्योर दिस वुड बी द केस विद all the other ammis and abbus and bachas as well. But so it's quite a journey. Like ScaryAmmi started off as an online community for Ammi, and uske baad se now having an e-commerce arm as well. So what exactly is ScaryAmmi now? Matlab, you of course matlab never had thought ke ek din e-commerce arm bhi hoga and you would be selling stuff as well. I was just exploring ScaryAmmi websites yesterday, and I was like, wow. I mean, it's a one-stop shop for all the ammis and for all the girls, probably for all the kids. So matlab what is in the bank for ScaryAmmi with you?
So when I began, like I said, it was literally just me reaching out for support. Now I have like massive ambitions. I want like ScaryAmmi to take over the Ammi world in Pakistan. And not just like e-commerce. Like I want us to do e-commerce. Like my dream, often people are like, what is your dream? And I'm like, I want to have physical centers for like ScaryAmmi, like Ammi wellness centers all over the country. Like, I want to set up like Ammi products that fulfill their needs. So I've often thought of like Ammi care centers and child care centers and, everything which is exactly the way I really want like mental health to become a topic that we don't just talk about, when we want to. It's like part of our conversation. Like today I remember when my Tayamma is a very like progressive woman. She's a politician, etc. She lost her husband and she was going through a really, really hard time. And I remember mentioning to her, and this is like a very progressive, educated parliamentarian. And I said to her, Chachi, why don't you go for therapy? And she's like, no, I would never go for therapy. And those are the kind of conversations I want to change. So to me, the impact that I want ScaryAmmi to have is both tangible and intangible. Like, in the tangible form, because I come from a business family and I come from a family that owns industries and owns buildings and owns real estate and murabbe and wo kahani. So I think the virtual world, while I love it and I'm a product of it and I belong to it, and I am a techpreneur, kahin na kahin mujhe lagta hai, lekin where is that physical thing? People who are born into tech don't want anything physical because wo to believe in virtual impact mein karte hain, which is true. But we are a product of what we grew up with.
Absolutely.
I grew up like that, and all my cousins have businesses that have like कारखाने या warehouses या factories, etc. So मुझे होता है कि I need to have physical centers all over the country.
Right.
But I also want our virtual impact to be so much greater. So there's so much, Ammaar, I want to do, from rating websites for schools to, multiple e-commerce things to, ScaryAmmi loyalty cards, to really like transforming the world of retail, the world of medicine, the world of healthcare, where ammis come first. So, I have massive dreams. Like I dream about like working with the bank and having ammi counters in every bank, because it is such a torture for a bank. So mere ideas to bahut bade hain. Like I want, I spoke to the governor of Punjab and I was like, you should have an ammi ministry. And he was like, that is a really good idea. But then he didn't remain the governor anymore. But I'm waiting कि हमारा कोई एक governor टिक जाए. So I want to go back to him
नहीं ये
and
ज्यादा
say that
मुश्किल काम है मेरा ख्याल है
governor को
Governor
टिकाना
को टिकना।
बनाना. So when Chaudhry Sarwar, who was a very good friend of like Scary-Ammi, and he was always like very supportive of the brand.
yeah
When he was there, he said,
very
"Totally,
gentle
Ayesha,
soul
I'm
as
going to
well.
help you do it."
Yeah.
Well, it's a ministry now be whole, like a division, gradually developing into a ministry. So he said, "I'm going to totally do it," and then he didn't go. He didn't stay. And then Umar Chima became the governor.
Yeah. Umar
And then
Sarfraz.
I had just gotten an appointment from him, and I was
And
going
then
to
he isn't the governor anymore.
तो अब मैं सोच रही हूँ कि मैं वेट ही कर लूँ कि पहले मैं बाकी चीजों पे but you know, like that is what I'm telling you, my plans are that big. Like I want ScaryAmmi to have a counter in every single bank. I want Jazz to have a separate counter. Like people don't realize the torture. I have accountants, I have runners. I don't need to go to banks. The banks kind of like send me papers. They come to us themselves. But how many women have this luxury? Very, very few. Why should banks be such hostile places? Why should mobile offices be so hostile? Why can people not understand that ammis don't have time? वो एक बच्चे को अपनी गोद में उठाया होता है, एक बच्चा गाड़ी में होता है, किसी बच्चे को स्कूल से लेना होता है, and you like token लो भाई ammis का waiting area ही separate होना चाहिए. You don't value your ammis, this country is not going to grow up.
अच्छा आयशा मगर इसमें ये भी there could be some criticism as well from the अब्बूज के यार अगर अम्मीज का एक स्पेशल काउंटर हो सकता है so why can't there be a counter for अब्बूज वो भी तो ब्रेक में निकल के भाग रहे होते हैं हाँ ये अच्छा पॉइंट
या पहले अब्बूइंग तो शुरू करें अब मतलब it's so funny. Okay, this is like I'll give you a real life example. So my boys go to HSN, right? And HSN college is the kind of college जहाँ पर अब्बूज बड़े ज्यादा एक्टिव हैं because उनकी ड्रीम होती है कि बेटे HSN जाएं, right? Like मेरे इन-लॉज की ड्रीम थी. मेरा मतलब obviously मैं खुद जब HSN की नहीं पढ़ी हुई तो मेरी तो नहीं थी ना ड्रीम कि मैं HSN जाऊं.
Absolutely.
So Abu's like matlab HSM college is the only school where you will see Abu's dropping off boys and picking up boys because old boys club hai. अब आप सोचो कि हमारे ना mommy WhatsApp groups हैं. So because I'm a huge believer in equal parenting, so I was like that. Listen, we should have a separate group for Abu's, and the ammis were like. नहीं इसकी क्या जरूरत है मेरे हस्बैंड को तो ये भी नहीं पता मेरा बच्चा कौन से ग्रेड में है ये वो. मैंने कहा चलो फिर पता चल जाएगा अगर नहीं पता तो ग्रुप में पता चल जाएगा. So now we have separate like Abu groups for my kids, but some Abus are active, some are not, but at least the conversation around equal parenting has started. But abhi bhi like mothering parenting is done by ammis. Like I am the one who knows कि मेरे बच्चों की classes कब हैं, tuitions कब हैं, sports कब है, कौन सा uniform जाना है. Like today, so my routine is I get up at 3:45 in the morning. So today I was really, really exhausted, and my son had a history exam that he had to revise for. So my husband was like, "Okay, it's okay, Ayesha. My husband is hardly ever in Pakistan, like 3 days in a month." So today was the day that he was here. That he was like, "I'll give you a break, and मैं उससे तैयार कराता हूँ for history." And sadly, I said, "कि हाँ ठीक है, no problem." And sadly, at 7:50 when I woke up, I was like, "Oh my God, Ahil की comic strip नहीं गई, वो मेरे bedroom में पड़ी हुई थी. कयान के posters नहीं गए, वो lounge में पड़े हुए थे. शारान का आज रानिया का pizza day था, उसका pizza नहीं गया, उसके साथ normal lunch चला गया." So literally it took me 3 hours to like go to every school and send them the stuff because I am the one doing active parenting. So मुझे पता था कि उसका pizza day है, उसका ये है, उसका वो है, ये चीज जानी थी. My husband didn't know. All he knew was कि क्या को test की तैयारी करानी है. So till dads become equal parts, they can't ask for provisions. But do the heavy lifting, then ask for the counter.
Chalo, ठीक है, we'll discuss that in detail. Okay, so Ayesha, now this group has been there for a while now. What do you think are some of the ways in which the ammis in Pakistan have been helped, or what are some of those major concerns do you think have been addressed through the community that you've created? What is the recurring problem that you see ammis are faced with?
I think one of the biggest problems is that inherently every woman who becomes an Ammi genuinely wants to be the best Ammi possible. So
Hmm.
I don't think usme koi two ways hai.
Hmm.
The process of becoming a mother is such that you do want to do the best you can do, right? Like गरीब mothers की भी यही wish होती है कि अपने बच्चों को अच्छा खिलाएं, अमीरों की भी यही wish होती है कि अपने बच्चों को अच्छा कराएं. The problem in Pakistan is that we don't have the tools to help a mother be the best mom she can. We don't have those facilities. We don't have that degree of education. So I think through ScaryAmmi, we've started learning what good parenting is, what good mothering is. I've learned what good nutrition is, what good, what are the right ways to talk to your child, what are the right ways to be empathetic, what does it mean to be a good mother? So I feel education is an area in which we've made a huge difference. The understanding of parenting is. So that is one thing that we've made a huge difference in. Also, another thing that I feel we've really worked on is showing Ammis that they have a voice. So time and again, we've been able to actually show the power of Ammi. So, when smog was a huge issue in Pakistan, especially in the Punjab, we were able to lobby the Ministry of Education and successfully bring about smog-related changes in the legislature, which was massive. We've also been able to, that happened very successfully. We've also raised very successful debates on the single national curriculum.
Exactly.
And,
I think I followed a couple of them on,
and
you
we've
were a part
lobbied
of.
the government very successfully on that. And we've been able to get that done. So even with the floods, for example, there's a lot that we've done a fair amount of fundraising in helping the floods. What I really want to do is work more for the pregnant women and the mothers who are suffering in this situation by setting up maternity camps. But literally the need for what ScaryAmmi needs to do is so much greater than what we can do at this point. Then I'm always telling my husband, कि मुझे लगता है I'm always fighting fires, because the need for real changes for Ammis in Pakistan is so great. I don't know if in this lifetime I can match all of them, but I definitely want to try. I mean, it's sad. The largest segment of population in this country is the most underserved, under-talked about, barely discovered, barely recognized. I'm the only Ammipreneur I know who won all these awards at the startup world, not because I'm brilliant, but because I had those opportunities. So even the term Ammipreneur, pehli dafa national stage pe was heard when I won the startup for Pakistan. But I mean, it's sad. There are thousands of Ammipreneurs. ना कोई बात करता है, ना कोई
Do you think it's, मैं यही पूछना चाह रहा था कि ना कोई बात, कैसे आपने भी कहा कि ना कोई बात करता है इस बारे में, but why is there still not many Ammipreneurs in Pakistan, especially when they see a person like you?
So there are. The problem is who is controlling our narrative? Our narrative is being controlled by men. Our narrative is being controlled by men who don't even believe in equal parenting, who believe कि औरतों की तो ये जिम्मेदारी है, उनके ऊपर तो ये ये तो वो पैदा ही इसलिए हुई है कि उन्होंने माँ बनना है और परवरिश करनी है. They don't have a voice, they don't have needs, they don't have wants. And फिर चलो जो उन्होंने परवरिश भी करनी है वो भी, why do they need tools? कुछ पूछना है तो सास से पूछ लो, कुछ पूछना है तो खाला सास से. The conversation is controlled by men. So even when Ammis are doing an excellent job, even when Ammis are transforming the world, even when Ammis are breaking barriers, who's going to showcase our stories? Nobody, because the conversation is controlled by men. Why is there not an Ammi ministry or a separate committee that discusses Ammi issues? It's because the parliament is controlled by men. They will laugh at the idea. You found the idea funny and you're an empowered man. Imagine men who are not empowered. They'd be like, "Paglon wali baatein kar rahi hai. Western conspiracy. Western idea."
Everything is a Western conspiracy in Pakistan, and a very well thought out.
All the Jews and the West are after our lives.
Absolutely, everything is either funded by them or conspired by them. So yes, of course, I get that idea, but at the same time, I think your opinion, not opinion, but the suggestion that you have coined, that there should be a separate ministry for Ammis, and now that you talk about, and I'm also I've kind of opened up to the different ideas or the multiple facets of what could exist in
God, it would be so cool. मैं तो कह रही हूँ ministry ना बनाए यार, एक desk ही दे दें. मतलब my point is not कि मुझे ministry दें. Honestly, I'm very happy with what I'm doing. And also, like, I often tell my husband that the reason I wanted to have more children is because I want to make sure they all become like leaders in the world. So 5 countries to be taken over by 5 kids, unhi ko bada karna is enough for me. So I'm not saying that I want to become the minister for Ammis. I'm saying have a desk so that the conversation begins. So there is somebody there
So that the
looking
need
at
gets
issues that are
recognized.
affected. Yes, that's it. Start that conversation.
अच्छा मुझे ये बताएं कि what do you think is the biggest obstruction in Pakistani economy and society for mothers overall?
The biggest, okay, this is something that
Is it just the
I
men, or is it the
would be
way
a
things have
game
been structured?
changer. No, it is the system. So can you imagine in a country like Pakistan, there is zero option for flexible working hours for Ammis, zero. So look at the trajectory of a woman. Like, look at my trajectory, for example. You do really well in school, you topped in the school, you topped in college, you top in university. You now like 23, maybe 24 years old. Your parents are like, "Shadi kar lo." You marry a good man, not somebody who beats you up and all. Achhi jagah shadi ho gayi. You're now 25. Doctors say have your first child before 30. You get pregnant. Ab kya karo? You get a job, a great job, 9 a.m. to 5. कहते लोग 5 हैं, बज 6:30 7 जाते हैं. Great job, बड़े अच्छे पर्सन, गाड़ी भी मिल गई, पेट्रोल भी मिल गया, सब कुछ. Masla, you have a child. You want to breastfeed that child? You have to pump like mad. Where do you pump? There's no pumping room. So I used to pump at Express News, and I would go into the bathroom, and I was in a very senior executive position. The chalo ek bathroom tha. I would go in the bathroom, sit on the flush, and pump, and that's really not hygienic. But main kya karti? And then I would hide the milk in these like black boxes, put them in the freezer because there was no fridge. And then I had hired a guy who would come, I would message him, he would come to my office, pick up the milk, take it to my son, because there was no place to store it. Matlab, itne issues, itni kahaniyan. Not everybody can do it. Breastfeed nahi karte. You want to breastfeed? You can't. Not in the Pakistani system. You want to spend more time with your child? You can't, because yahan par maternity leave 2 hafte hai, 10 दिन है. जो employer का दिल करे वही है. महीना है, 20 दिन है. Really, it depends on the employer. Right? अच्छा ठीक है, maternity leave खत्म हो गई. Your baby is. You want to leave the child at a daycare? There are no daycares. There are qualified daycares that have nurses, daycares जिनको आप trust करो. अब क्या करो? You want to leave the baby with your mother-in-law? Maybe she's not well enough. Maybe she doesn't want to. 100 reasons. आप करो क्या? End में आपको कोई choice नहीं, आप नौकरी छोड़ दो. So the problem
यही होता है, कई सारी जो अम्मियां हैं वो नौकरी छोड़ देती हैं.
Majority, the biggest reason women don't practice medicine in Pakistan is the environment. How do they practice medicine? You're asking them to do 48-hour shifts, which is fine. Every woman can do what a man is doing. बच्चों को कहाँ छोड़ें? कोई डे केयर है, कोई चाइल्ड केयर की प्रोविजन है, कुछ है जो वो 48 hours के लिए. Where do we? So I had a full-time job, right? And then gradually I went into entrepreneurship. But like, for example, I have a baby at home. He's 7 months. But because I run my own office, I have the luxury of thinking. Like I was telling my assistant, when my nanny goes to Philippines, I might bring the baby to office. And she was like, it's a good idea. मैं आपको help कर दूंगी, etc. I can at least think.
That you have some support.
They would be like, our nanny is going, या वो जो एक nurse हमें मुश्किल से मिली है, वो जा रही है, हम नौकरी छोड़ देते हैं. I have a friend of mine, very senior banker. I think she was regional manager या bank manager. पूरी जिंदगी उसने banking की है. उसके पास एक maid थी जिसको वो trust करती थी for her 2 children. वो उस maid की शादी हो गई. She's like, I couldn't trust anybody. She resigned. She actually left banking. Because she was like, where do I leave my children? मेरे पास एक maid थी जिसको मैं trust करती थी. Now I can't trust. Like it is.
And again, this is the story of women like you who can still afford to have a nanny or can still afford to have some sort of a support at home.
And हमें भी इतना मसला है. Like people who can afford, I can't tell you how many issues I face. Like there are days when I can't come to office because किसी बच्चे की PTM or some child needs me or a child's fallen sick. And I own my business. I can like अगर मैं office में आ सकती I call up my lead team members and I'm like घर आ जाओ, Zoom पर आ जाओ, ये कर लो, वो कर लो. Even I face issues. Like for example, the building we have our office in, the elevators I feel are very unsafe because there's no separate elevator for women and children. So the elevators में you don't know कि किस तरह का आदमी आके बच्चों के साथ है. So I feel so unsafe. So when my children come to my office, I walk down 7 floors, I hold their hand, I bring them up. Matlab, आप सोच ही नहीं सकते how ammi friendly this world is. This is in a place where I own the office. तो मुझे होता है कि यार the elevators are unsafe. There are no cameras in the elevators.
Absolutely.
Because nobody thinks like an ammi. We think like an ammi. I know, okay, my daughter is only 8 years old. When she's coming up in the elevator, how will she protect herself? What if a guy like touches her or says something? Who will be there? There will be nobody. There will be no witnesses. I think like that because I'm an ammi. एक अम्मी होता तो वो ये जरूर सोचता कि यार जो यहाँ पर औरतें काम करेंगी, उनके बच्चे अगर इधर आएंगे पिक एंड ड्रॉप के लिए कुछ भी, तो एक एलिवेटर होना चाहिए जो सिर्फ औरतों के लिए है. But this is not. But nobody thinks like an ammi, so they're like, who gives a damn?
अच्छा, मैं इस पे थोड़ा सा इस बारे में भी आता हूँ कि what sort of support are you looking for from the government? But at the same time, before we go and talk about that, you have talked about a very significant problem that we are faced with in Pakistan, and that is molestation, or maybe potential molestation, and it's taking place at a massive level now. It's happening at a massive level as compared to how it used to be, but now cases are being reported. So my question to you is, do you think legislation alone is enough to prevent those cases happening, those things happening in Pakistan? Because I don't think even if there are legislations in place, मुझे नहीं लगता कि उसका कोई खास effect हो रहा है, and बल्कि rather I am seeing a significant growth in the number of cases, molestation cases जो हैं, जो ये वाले हो रहे हैं. मतलब it's very shocking, it's very painful, traumatic. So what do you think would be the solution to that? Because I've been talking about it, and I maintain an opinion that's very, different. So I would want to have your take on that.
Yeah, I mean, your question is, will molestation end, right?
How will it end? What, in your opinion, is the way to, end it?
Okay, so I'll give you another example. So, Bank Al-Flah is like one of the biggest banks in the country. Right. So I remember, I told you I don't like going to banks at all. But एक दफा पता नहीं स्टेट बैंक की कोई regulation change हुई थी, and to lease a car, you have to physically go to the bank and do your biometrics, right? जो पहले नहीं थे. So ये जब condition आई थी, तो I was leasing a car, so I had to go there, right? And so I went there in my work clothes, which were like pants and a shirt, इसी तरह का कुछ था. So I went there. And I go to the senior banker who was managing my case, and he barely knew me, and his comment was, "Oh, आप जितनी अच्छी लग रही हैं, आप इतनी अच्छी बातें भी कर रही हैं," something like that. And then I think in the end he said कि आपका case हो गया, मेरा तोहफा कहाँ है? And I was like, so I was so taken aback कि तब मैं कुछ कह भी नहीं सकी, because I was like, do I know you? Why are you talking to me like this? I'm here to do a biometric. Like, what the hell? Anyway, उस वक्त मैंने नहीं react किया. I felt very uneasy. But I didn't react. So that मैं घर गई, and I was like, how dare that guy speak to me like this? How dare he? Who gave him that right? But just because, not even a position of authority, just because he was behind the desk, he thought he could. So I spoke to my husband, and my husband's like, "Oh, I can go fix him." And I was like, "No, I'm sorry, I will fight my battle." So I figured out Atif Bajwa's email address, and I wrote to the president of Bank Al-Flah, and I was like, if this is what is happening in your bank, you can forget about women coming there. Within like an hour, the senior vice president called me. Then the directors began calling me up, and they wanted to know what happened, and then they began taking action and etc. And then I don't really know कि eventually उस case का क्या हुआ. But the point is कि if I look at all I could do was send an email to Atif Bajwa. Had he ignored my email, तो क्या होता? कुछ भी नहीं. Since if you don't have repercussions for such, for such overtures that are taking place, you will not have a society that is safe. You will just not. So let's say if there is a guy, and if my daughter is in the lift and he touches her, what can she do? Maybe she can scream. If she comes to me, what can I do? Maybe I can go and blast him. If I tell my husband, he might go slap him. But what can you go? Where is the punishment in the law?
Yeah, exactly.
For verbal overtures. And then forget the punishment. Yeah, law maybe is it really, is it implemented? Are verbal comments, are lewd remarks, are the fact that you have made a woman feel unsafe, are those conditions enough for action? No. You don't have to wait for
who's going to take the action, Ayesha? That's the thing. Na. Action lena kisne hai?
So so one of the ideas I have is I want to even like start a website where if there's a man who's made a woman feel uncomfortable, we upload his picture and his profile and
Oh
details of
yeah,
that. Yes, I
I
really
think that would be really effective.
I so want to do that. So if there's a banker who's made a woman feel uncomfortable, if there's somebody in a shop, if there is, random comment, like random WhatsApp messages that you have made a woman feel unsafe, you better watch out because you might be on that website. Develop a database of men who have made women feel unsafe. Like drivers, right? So like we would all know, bande ko nahi rakhna, he did this. But Ammaar, like I have one daughter, mashallah, and I have 4 sons. And I like tell Nasir, maybe the reason God only gave me one daughter is because keeping her safe
Is a huge
is
challenge.
aging me. Like it comes from everything, like us teaching her, like she has a pepper spray in her school bag, right? Like every day when we drop her, we tell her, even if a teacher says anything, if a peon says anything, kisi ne kuch kaha, ped lagao and pepper spray nikalo. Every day we pump her. But then we also like have to talk to our drivers every day. You are not allowed to go near her. The maid will open her door. The maid will sit down. But literally every day we talk to her. We still don't know if she's safe because the society is a nightmare. In our house, no man can enter the house, right? So we have like a separate entrance and the drivers and the books and all. Koi aadmi nahi andar aa sakta. Because she's 9 years old, she'll wear whatever she wants to, it's her house. Even then, I don't know if she's safe. Like I'm telling you, even though I'm so obsessive, कि जब वो आती है, मैं खुद नीचे जाती. I have a female secretary, so if I can't be with her and she has to go somewhere, I send my secretary. I have no idea if she's still safe. What if my secretary is on the phone and the driver does something? It takes an instant to destroy a life. And the responsibility, sadly, is on the Ammis. Okay, if something goes wrong with Rani, even my husband would be like, it's because you were at work. Like that is just how we think it is. So मैं कुछ भी कर लूं, मतलब I feel कि one of the biggest issues that mothers are facing is how do you keep your daughters safe? Sons को भी safe रखना is मुश्किल, but with daughters, so I'm like, I live in Kant, and even then I'm like, you can't play on the streets. If you playing on the streets, so I have to stand there. मतलब, and Rania is like my daughter, and very outspoken. Her cheese, but she's like, if he's doing it, why can't I do it?
Yeah.
And I keep telling
Nasir, make you नहीं But I think I really am on board with the idea that you floated.
किसी boarding में डाल दो जहाँ पर बस nuns manage कर रही हैं. The one thing with convent, I will tell you, convent kept its girls safe. उस ज़माने में I never felt unsafe at convent. Never. I felt safer there than anywhere else. But
वही वाली बात है ना, Ayesha, you had that kind of access. बाकी जो अभी जो केसेस रिपोर्ट हो रहे हैं वो तो गांव वगैरह में हो रहे हैं, वहां तो हम सोच भी नहीं सकते कि लाहौर, कराची, इस्लामाबाद वाला माहौल हो भी सकता है.
But you know that LGS, one of the Lahore grammar schools, had massive cases of so I mean, imagine one of the most elitist schools had issues of a teacher doing that.
Okay, now coming to the last question, what sort of support do you think that the government should extend your way to make the whole, Ammi journey easy for everyone? Bringing it back to ScaryAmmi.
I think they should set up a ministry.
But other than the ministry, because I don't see that happening anytime soon, unless, and I think besides Imran Khan, you're the only person who is awaiting elections. क्योंकि वो होगा तो उसके बाद कोई लंबा कोई governor आ सकता है.
I don't know, Imran Khan, I'm not sure कि कितना progressive है when it comes to women. There are multiple debates, but people around Imran Khan are very progressive. So I know a number of them, and some of them are my biggest mentors and supporters. So, like when people tell me, okay, why do you support Imran Khan? And I tell them, I don't support him because honestly, I don't know him well enough, and I feel his messages are so conflicting. I'm quite confused on what his stance is on women, because he says things that seem very anti-women. But the people around him are brilliant minds, like brilliant. I mean, not just brilliant minds, empathetic, supporters of women, the kind of men who would not just stand by women, like pull her hand and lead her to victory kind of men, right? Like my own husband, for example, is that kind of man, but also the mentors he has, the supporters, speechwriters. So I often tell people that अगर उस तरह के लोग उसे support कर रहे हैं ना, then he can't be that bad on women's rights. But I don't know. to be honest, it's not something I can ever talk about with authority because he says the weirdest things, but then the people with him are the biggest liberatis that I know. So I'm confused if he's just saying those things because of elections. Like, what does he really? He was married to a very progressive woman. Like, Jemima is very progressive, very cultured, very liberating. But to come back to your question, we don't want glory, we don't want money, we don't want handouts. We just want a voice. So when you are making policies, think about the Ammis or involve an Ammi in that discussion. When you're talking about reforms, involve an Ammi. When you're doing flood relief efforts, involve an Ammi. Involve an Ammi activist. Involve somebody who's talking about Ammi issues. Get their point of view. Make sure, Napoleon said this, you give me good mothers, I will give you a great nation. And I've said this to the government so many times. You give Pakistan scary Ammis, you will get a good nation. I mean, you will get a great nation. There is no option. ये तो हो ही नहीं सकता कि आपकी अम्मीज empowered हो, liberated हो, educated हो, खुद मुख्तार हो, scary अम्मीज हो in the very sense they can take charge of the destiny और उनके बच्चे are not the citizens Pakistan wants. ये कैसे हो सकता है? Impossible. So I don't know why the government. I was at the Insaf Academy launch yesterday, and they were talking about like primary bachon ke maine schools banaye, elementary bachon ke schools banaye, all that. And I really wanted to say to Murad Ras, I was like, agar aap idhar ek Ammi teaching center bhi bana dete na, one of the schools, if it had also become or all the schools had become a learning and teaching place for Ammis, you would have seen कि बच्चों का dropout rate जिसकी आप इतनी बात कर रहे हैं कि 70% है after grade 5 वो zero हो जाता. Ammis को तो transform करें.
I think you could have said that to Murad. वो मेरा ख्याल है सुन लेते हैं आपकी बात.
या वो बात सुनते हैं.
बेचारे वो मेरा ख्याल है काफी
बीच में तो वो चले गए थे ना, तो अब वो वापस आए हैं. So I am. No, I am. Yeah, I'm definitely going to talk to him.
Murad has done some excellent work in the ministry. और मेरा अपना ख्याल है, and being very honest with you, this is the first time anybody has coined that idea directly to me. That there should be a separate desk or separate ministry or a separate window operations just for the Ammis. And I think I do have to agree with you, the kind of work that the Ammis are putting in. And of course, now when you talk about the student dropout, that can be reduced if you somehow facilitate the Ammi.
Yes, if the Ammi is convinced कि उसके बच्चे को पढ़ना चाहिए, तो वो बच्चे को कभी drop out नहीं होने देगी. अम्मी को तो आप लोग साइड पे ही भेज देते हो ना कि इससे क्या पूछना. तो फिर भुगताओ फिर. Then you will have the high dropouts rate, you will have the low vaccination rates, you will have the crime rate. When even a criminal wants approval from his Ammi, even a dropout wants approval from his Ammi, even a failure wants approval from his Ammi. Ammi ko to educate karo. Like, we ran this drive for vitamin D in which we educated the Ammis. Vitamin D kyun leni hai? And vitamin D sales skyrocketed because Ammi ko to empower karo. उसको पता, अगर एक अम्मी अपने मैमोग्राम्स करवाती है ना, तो वो अपनी बेटी का अल्ट्रासाउंड जरूर करवाएगी. जब अम्मी को ही नहीं पता कि यार ब्रेस्ट कैंसर क्या है, तो फिर आप एड्स चलाते जाओ टीवी पर, उसका क्या फायदा.
और मेरे ख्याल है ये वाली वो सपोर्ट है which can be infused and structured into the system, और फिर ये ठीक हो सकते हैं मसाइल, काफी सारे मसाइल.
Absolutely.
बिल्कुल सही. Thank you so much, Ayesha. Thank you very much for taking time out and for getting engaged in this discussion. It has been an eye-opener for me as well, again being very blunt and open about it. And I am sure the listeners who will be listening to this podcast, there would be so much of a new information for them to make themselves accustomed to, because not many people in Pakistan talk about these things. So yeah, thank you, and wishing you all the best, and hoping for a ministry of Ammis one day.
Thank you. Yeah, I hope so too. Thank you so much, Ammaar. It was great to talk to you. Thank you.
There's all mine, Ayesha. Take care.
Okay.